everyone, wherever you are around the world. Warm welcome to Amazing You podcasts and YouTube channels, and a big thank you to all of you who are here every week watching, listening, sharing, and subscribing. This is the channels where stories of resilience, triumph, and unwavering hope come to life. And in each episode, we dive into the inspiring journey of individuals who have faced the toughest challenges heads-on and emerged victorious. Our aim is to be a beacon of inspiration, offering a guiding light to those navigating through difficult times. And today, whether you are dealing with health challenges, professional setbacks, or personal struggles, this channel is dedicated to uplifting your spirit and showing you that even in the darkest moments, there is a path to hope and triumph. So join us as we share powerful stories that transcend adversity, reminding you that resilience is a force within us all. So be prepared, everybody, to be inspired and to find the strength to navigate life's challenges. So this is Amazing You channel, where hope takes center stage. I am your host. My name is Dr. Rani Thanakodi. I am a clinical hypnotherapist using rapid transformational therapy method. I am a Mars Venus life and relationship coach, tarot reader, astrologer, past life regression practitioner, breathwork coach, chakra practitioner, and life force compassion practitioner. And today, I have the great pleasure to introduce you to a very special lady all the way from Adelaide, Australia. Her name is JL Keez. JL is an author, speaker, and inspirer. JL is a survivor of a 9-year struggle with anorexia nervosa and many more enduring associated debilitating mental illnesses, including chronic fatigue, migraines, anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, depersonalization, and suicidal depression. JL dedicates her life to empowering those impacted as she once was. JL educates sufferers of mental illness with a focus on eating disorders through educational programs, Zoom webinars, inspirational speaking, and books. Each medium shared is authentic, honest, highly informative, and extremely relatable. So very warm welcome to you, JL, to Amazing You.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your podcast series. I've been looking forward to this all day, and since we first met each other and decided that this was an undertaking that we would both enjoy, and hopefully the people watching it will get a lot out of it too to apply to their own lives. So thank you so much for having me here. I'm looking forward to the discussion and seeing where it goes.
Absolutely. I am very honored, JL, to have you. I would like to say a big thank you for taking your time today to share your journey, your inspirational journey on the podcast and YouTube channel. When I met you for a course that you were doing on writing, I didn't know until I read your bio how much you've gone through. And when reading your bio, I say, oh my God, I couldn't believe it that you've been through so much. And I say, this is what you need to share to everybody, and so that people know that whatever they are going through, they are not alone, because some people wouldn't talk about that. So let's get started. And my first question to you, JL, is can you tell us about what has brought you to that journey of becoming an author, a speaker, and an inspirer, JL?
Gosh, you're going to have longer than the time span we've got here. But it is an immeasurable story, and unfortunately one that a lot of people share across the globe. I'm certainly not the only one. But to try and put it in a nutshell, I was a little blondie born onto a farm, And I was born into a very strict religious family culture. And I was sort of whittled down. My character was certainly impacted by the perfection of what we needed to live with. So that was one of the determining factors that shaped who I became. I also was sexually abused as a child by a few people, unfortunately. So at the age of 15, going through that background, and of course it was a lot more extensive than that for the time that we have here, but at the age of 15, I developed anorexia nervosa. I was a top athlete and I was expected to do wonderful things with my athletic ability. I was also a vocalist and expected to follow that path as well. But becoming an anorexic at 15 for the next 9 years destroyed all of those opportunities that came my way. So I did eventually get some help. Back when I suffered from my eating disorder, there wasn't a lot of understanding around eating disorders and what caused them. What's the core of why we end up in an eating disorder. And so I was taking down pathways that weren't really that helpful. And it was, put on weight or else we'll hospitalise. There was a lot of threats. And so gradually I did, over a couple of years, with a lot of fear associated with it, I did restore my weight back to 58 kilos, which for someone 5'8" still wasn't really where I needed to be. I think as an athlete I was 62 or something like that. But I maintained that. I still acknowledged that I sort of stayed within parameters of eating, of what I could and couldn't do to maintain that weight as well. So I really wasn't out of the woods. I just restored enough weight to look healthy again. At the end of that time, or overlapping rather, I developed a range of mental illnesses, chronic fatigue, fear and anxiety, OCD, depersonalisation, cruel 2-day migraines, up against the wall with axes, breaking through my brain sort of thing. And eventually that led me down the path to consider taking my life. I'd had enough. The suffering was too great. Particularly when I arrived at the age of 37, having to use walls and fences and whatever just to move from one space to another. So I did get very, very ill. Somehow, though, amongst all of that, I did get married and I did birth 2 children, one at 27 and one at 30, and each time thought that if this is hormones all out of whack, these little ones might just help me put them back into whack again. Well, it actually went the other way and I just got too ill to function or do anything. But that's in a nutshell, But at the age of 37, I was now a single mum. And I met a lady called Joan Hookstad who practiced reality therapy underpinned by choice theory. And her leading question was, tell me your story. And as soon as she said those words, I just folded. I just started to cry and cry and cry, knowing that at last I had found someone who was going to direct me in the right direction and ask the right questions, that were going to see me really be able to analyse and look at why anorexia nervosa had been my life and why these multiple mental illnesses had now joined me, instead of me miraculously healing at 24, 25 when the eating disorder was left behind. So that's sort of in a nutshell why I'm here, why I ended up writing my books. I was encouraged to write the first one as inspiration by the people who knew the depth and detail of my suffering. And I went on from that one to write 3 more. So I've got 4 on my books at the moment. I guess I'm a little bit proud. I don't really want to do any more at the moment. But, so that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, JL. What you've shared today, it's a really important issue, anorexia nervosa, and it's very common among teenagers, among young people. And one day I was watching a documentary, and it's very common among athletes because there is a lot of pressure put on them to perform, and very often that triggers other issues inside of them. And can you, because you are the first guest that is talking about that, and I know this is a very common issue among young people, so I would like you to explain a bit more to the audience what is anorexia nervosa, and what can they do if they, as they listen to you, if they realize that they are suffering from that? How can they help themselves?
Okay, anorexia nervosa is a form of an eating disorder. I know back when I suffered it, there was two types, bulimia or anorexia nervosa, and now there seems to be a lot of labels given to a lot of varieties of eating disorders. But I always like to think that, even though there's different labels, there's one central cause for each of them. And in order to not one central cause that fits everybody, I mean, one line of therapy, I guess, and questioning that can be applied to each of those that I believe needs to be undertaken to realise why you're going into that eating disorder in the first place and how to get yourself out of it. As I said, at 37, even though I put the weight on, it wasn't until that important question, tell me your story, hit my ears. And I've learned through going through that process and successfully coming out the other end that built within our life stories are all the answers, the clues and the solutions as to why we develop the illnesses that we do. And here today we're talking about eating disorders. So if I look at my own story, which I didn't know until I was 37, and then it all started, when the body was ready and I was ready to hear it, my story started to fall out in front of me, and it was almost unbelievable at first because I tucked it all away in that little girl, back on the farm. She left it when she left the farm at 6 when her father went into the ministry. I think she left all memory of that behind as well. But gradually the sexual abuse came to the foreground, and I was able to make the connections between anorexia nervosa, the eating disorder, and what that represented for me back to having experienced sexual abuse and this strong family control or perfectionism as well. And by, unpacking my thoughts that I'd gained around that, the emotional load that I'd gained, and the behaviours that I adopted when I went in, and then the physical outcome as well. So there were 4 important areas to sort of explore and look at in terms of, and always relating back to the eating disorder. And once I could identify the connections to each of those and where my taught thinking, I'll call it, like how I was taught to think and believe about life and how I filtered life and perceived the world worked, which it didn't actually work the way I thought, I was able to then bring in the changes that I needed. And so once the changes came in, once the thinking changed, once the behaviours changed, the emotional load as well began to lift, and I began to change and morph back into who I really am rather than why I was as I was. So it's really important for anyone, look, eating disorders are a mental illness. I don't categorise that different. It's just a different form, just like suicidal depression is a different form. But built within each of those illnesses are life events. And I highlight relationship connections as well, because it was the relationship connections that I had with my father, my grandfather, my godfather, and these people, and the words that they spoke to me when they were abusing me that I took on and believed. Well, why wouldn't I? I'm a child being guided by these people that I believe are guiding me correctly. So for me, that was why the eating disorder developed. And for those listening today, I strongly encourage you to go and look at your life events, your relationships, your thoughts. What are you running through your head all the time and believing about yourself and about the world? Let's unpack it, let's explore it, and let's bring it back to reality. Of course, what am I also talking about? I'm talking about wrapping ourselves up in a lot of fear. And that for me was the major, major hurdle. My life was based and steeped in fear. So I needed to unpack that and realise that these fears actually weren't real. So that's, that one, you need to identify why you've gone into an eating disorder. And the way I look at it as well is your body is a vessel that you live in, and it wants you to always be healthy and well. So illnesses come along to tell you, hang on, somewhere in your life, something's going majorly wrong, if I can use the word majorly wrong. And it's your body's kindest way to be able to communicate with you, to say, hey, take time out in your life, have a look at this illness and ask yourself, why is it here? What is its purpose? What does it want to share with you and speak to you? So, because it wants to go as much as you want it to go. It doesn't want to stay around too long. It wants to vacate. And as I said before, the clues and the solutions, the answers are all there. And for me, being guided the reality therapy way was the process that helped me make sense about why I had gone into this deep, dark tunnel of oblivion that at one stage seemed like it was never going to leave me or end. So I hope I've answered your question for you there, Rainey. If there's any gaps, let me know.
Thank you. Thank you so much, JL. I think it's great that you explain that, because I think it's a very important issue, a very important issue among young people, and it's not often talked about, because I know young clients that I had suffered from that, and it comes a lot from the control around them, and they feel they have no control, but the only way they can control is they control what they put in their body. So it's about them trying to cope with what is going on around them by adopting this kind of mechanism. Yeah, it's about all the protection, They are trying to protect themselves. And I want the audience to know that whenever you experience any issues in your childhood, whether it's sexual abuse like you and I have experienced, whether we experience challenging, dysfunctional family life, the child will never blame the caregivers. And we as children, we take all the blame, we put on ourselves, and we suppress all that, like you said, and the body will communicate that in some form or another. And I have seen many, many clients, or many friends, I would say, who have gone through surgery, JL, thinking that their issue would be resolved. But after the surgery, the issue is not resolved. The pain is still there.
That's right, because it's in the thinking.
Absolutely.
That thinking needs to change. If you don't change that, you're not going to get through it. And I just wanted to add to my answer as well, because I'm sharing and indicating that it's life events, through your childhood, through your life, that can trigger off this eating disorder response.
Yes.
So, mine was, and I'm hearing for the first time yours was as well, Rani, and I'm sorry to hear that. But these in childhood memories and all of that. The other one that you suggested before was being athletes. My daughter's a dancer, and so I saw it in that industry as well. And she won a scholarship here in, Sydney. So I live in Adelaide, Australia. And in Sydney, Australia, she went off at the age of 15 to, chase her dream. And but she walked away from ballet for that very reason, because she was forced to keep skinny. I remember she came home one holiday period and I was very concerned because there was just nothing left of her. And thankfully, the next time she came home, she was back to herself. And she had shared with me via her phone. She said, I'm not doing this to myself. I'm seeing what these girls are doing to themselves, so that they can follow their dream of being a ballerina. And so it can be lifestyle at the time as well. In these young ladies, it might not be something from the childhood, their life or anything. It's the relationship they're having with themselves and their teachers and the people that are making them eat like that, and athletes as well,
yes.
To achieve and aspire to a certain level of achievement as well. So, but it's still their story. So we're still going to look at their story and their beliefs built in that story. That's where they need to go.
Yeah.
Not easy.
No, but it's worth it, It's worth it because look at our transformation, how we've come out after having work on ourselves. It's really wonderful to see that, not only for ourselves, but to see the life of people who have been transformed once they've looked inside and healed those wounded aspects of themselves.
Absolutely. You know, I look at the person that I was up until I was probably around 40. When I started, I started with Joan at 37. And by the time I was in my early 40s, I was, you just don't think you're ever going to make it. And then there is a turning point that comes. And then, now I'm a lot older than that, unfortunately. And I look back and you go, how did I ever think like that? However, did I think that that's how life worked? But when you're in it, you don't think you're ever going to get to that point. But keep fighting your battle and keep going, because one day you will arrive at that place where you've brought yourself back into you and you can look back and see the folly, to use a word, of how you were living. But it is a hard journey. I'm not going to disguise the fact that it's not hard. But it's in the thinking, and it's those skills and tools that are cleverly given to you that you are willing to adopt into your life moving forward that will get you there as well. And I had a lot of those coming into my life as well. Thank you to Joan and her suggestions on that.
And thank you, JL. And that's beautiful that you've put that in your memoir called Anorexia Unlocked. Is that correct?
Yes, Anorexia Unlocked came about because I went to go into business and someone said to me, well, you need to write your book. It's your calling card. And I went, ugh. So anyway, I went to Sydney where my daughter was living over there, and she and her husband went off somewhere for a holiday, and I looked after their 2 Sphinx cats. And I thought, what am I going to do? So I started writing, and a month later it was written. And I think that's what happens when you have a story that's about you, and when you're ready, it just falls out. You're typing and off you go, So Anorexia Unlocked is, I always forget, I think it's 29 chapters, and it starts at the age of 2. That was the first memory I had of what happened at the age of 2. And then I take it through just little excerpts of my life so that people can get an overview of how my life was and what led to my downfall at 15, and then what brought me out at the other end. And then in the middle, I've got what I call 14 pearls of wisdom. So they're all the learnings that I would like to give from my story and my learning, all my inspirations that I hand to other people, that hopefully they can read them, resonate, and pick them up and take them with their healing journey as well as a strength. And then the last bit is just a few pages that really explains this reality therapy and choice theory experience that I had and how I applied that to my journey as well. So that was the first book. And I found out back in 2014, one day this line came to mind and I just wrote a poem. By the end of that Saturday, I had 12 poems written down, and I went, stop now, I need to sleep. And very quickly I had 100. So the next book is 50 poems, and Recovery and All That Jazz is 50 poems. And their inspiration and their understanding and how that connected to my story and how it might inspire somebody else's journey moving forward. The third one, was just, it's all poetry. It's one of those books that you hold in your hand and you open and say, what do I need today to help me through? And you just open it randomly and pick one up and read it through. The fourth one came about, it's actually my story embedded into a fictitious story. So you've got all of this stuff going on around me, and what it allowed me to do, and it was an idea that was given to me by a friend who had read my first book. And they said, what we haven't got in the first book is the depth and detail of the suffering. What does suicidal depression look like? What would I see you doing? And so this particular book has enabled me to be able to describe that in depth and detail. If you could picture me, that's what you'd see me doing, or OCDing or migraines, open up the dialogue so you could really explore and see what we suffer, as a result of the life events that we have and become our story moving forward. So that book actually is my favourite one. And some things are coming about that are a bit exciting about that one, and I'm hoping that will unfold for me as well. So that's how my writing journey began. I didn't know I could write until I started writing books, and I went, oh, it's actually quite easy, isn't it, really?
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing all those great books that you've written, those 4 books. And I would like to tell the audience that if JL has been able to put her story, you can put your story too, and let it come out of you. it's the more you open up, the more you will feel free, the more you will heal. And can you share with us how this journey of writing has contributed to your healing process, JL?
Well, a lot of people actually ask me that question, and I think by the time I came to actually write the story, it was easy. It wasn't upsetting for me because I was done and dusted really in terms of the recovery process. But I guess, and my last one, Messages in the Night That Shaped My Soul, I think by going through that process, that was the one that really found me sitting up and going, gosh, this is no little thing that I have lived. When you experience betrayal by parents, secrets and lies by parents, and to this day they keep that front on and scapegoat me so that they don't get out. I think it was by going through that process and reading it 3 times, to redraft and redraft and redraft. There were many times when I sat back and just went, this is huge. I think I sort of took it almost for granted. I did see another male psychologist who said to me once, why don't you get up and sit and cry and everything? And I don't really know why. I think there's a bit of me that's still a bit dissociated from the reality that this is really big. My cousin recently just read my 4th book, and she contacted me. She said, JL, this is really bad. I still, we've been in contact all these years, but it's only by reading your book that I now acknowledge how bad and how awful this has been for you. So it's only really been in the last 12 to 24 months that I've really sat down and acknowledged in myself how bad it was. So, during that time, it's been through the 4th book that I've allowed myself to own how bad it was and not null and void it anymore. Our experience is so important. The depth and detail, you own it. It is awful. It is bad. Own it, but then transcend it once you've owned it, and just allow yourself to acknowledge and mourn. I've been through a couple of years, I guess, now that I'm talking about it, I'm mourning the loss of being a vocalist. I see my 2 children being performers and I cry, because that should have been me. This voice here should have been what earned me a lot of money. I should have been an actress on the stage as well, or a top athlete. It's mourning those losses. My marriage should never have ended. It ended because I was filled with fear. Person I am now, why the heck did I let that happen? It's irrelevant. So you see the huge impact it has. So I just wish I knew my story when I turned 15, and that's what listeners listening to me now, the younger you are, the quicker you get into exploring your story, the quicker you get out of it, and you don't miss out on your life. Because that's
Absolutely. Yes, thank you so much, JL, because that is so true. The quicker you heal, the better life you can have. You don't have to wait 40 years to start that healing journey. I think the younger generation are very lucky nowadays because there are so many people that you can get help from. Our time, it wasn't talk about those kind of issues, and there were not a lot of people to help us 40 years ago. But now therapists, practitioners are around, so get the help. Know that you are not alone on your journey. People are here to help you, and get the help, because the more you heal, the better relationships you will have with yourself, but with the people around you. But it's also what you are creating for the next generation, because when you heal, you are healing past generation, you are healing yourself, and you are healing all the generations that are coming in the future. So you are doing a great job when you heal yourself. You are healing the world in a way.
And I'd like to just add one more thing as well, because this is relevant to my story. And I think it's important to share that when you go to source, well, there's a lot of help out there, but how do I narrow it down to the one that would resonate with me? The first thing you ask is, do you have lived experience? Because I can look back now and look at a number of people who, went through secondary school, decided to be a psychologist or psychiatrist, and they went by textbooks, and that's why they never got anywhere with me. It was the person with lived experience that understood the words that I was using, the thoughts that I was having to process, my behaviours and everything, because I didn't know until I knew Joan for 2 years that it was her story as well. She never gave it away. I never picked it up. But she could feel what I was feeling, and she could understand and she knew when the tears fell what questions to ask to be able to discover what those tears were telling me. Whereas I'd been with psychiatrists who just got the tissue box out and said, there, don't cry. And I got to the point where I went, no, you're supposed to ask me why I'm crying and what the tears are telling me. So I always encourage people, look for lived experience. And if they haven't got it, move on. That's been my experience. And so I always sort of throw that in as well, because I do think it's important. Yeah.
Thank you, JL. That is super important what you just said, because I can tell you I have been in academia about teaching for a long time. And I have been researching on burnout, on a disengagement, because, every research you do, you want to find out something about you. And I was always looking for, trying to understand, but then I realized I never got to understand deeper than that. But when I started that healing journey to look within me, to look for practitioners that have had these kind of experiences like me, this has accelerated my healing journey. And that is so true. Like I say, a lot of people with theoretical knowledge does not help you to heal. It's only people who have experienced the similar things, the practitioners. They can understand you, they can hear you, they can hold that space for you in that difficult moment. Mm. And that is so important. That is so important. Find a therapist that is... I had to stop. There is an ambulance. Sorry. Yeah. So find somebody that... find a therapist or a practitioner that you can relate to. I think that's very important. That you think you can open up, that understands you, because not every therapist will vibrate at your energy that you will like. So find somebody that you find, yes, I feel safe to open up here, because it's that safe space that will help you to heal.
And there's a word that I'd like to really acknowledge there.
Yes.
Understanding. And that's a really valuable and important word. And actually in my 4th book, it's one of my themes that I set up in the preface or the introduction, whichever one I wrote it in. And it comes to vogue a lot of times throughout the book, that word understanding. And that's your understanding will come from looking at your story. And you will understand why you are, all right? You can't discover who you are without first looking at why you are. And once you understand why you are doing what you're doing, then who will just pop back in as you get rid of all those layers that aren't representing you. So, I just wanted to emphasise that word. That's where we need to come to all the time.
Yes, thank you, JL. Yes, that is such an important word. And I use that in hypnosis when I do the recording for clients. I say understanding is power. And understanding in the session is the most healing and the most transformative power.
Absolutely. And that's what was missing all of those years, for me, from 24 when I first was told or informed I was anorexic, and I went, well, what is that? And it wasn't till I was 37 that understanding came in. No one told me I had to understand it. And that was the huge difference as well. So look for your understanding, people.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, JL. JL, we are coming towards the end. I've got so many things to ask you, but I will keep it short. And one last question. Besides all your books, the great books you've written, what other projects or initiatives are you currently working on? and how can people stay updated and get in touch with you?
I'm going to whip that around the other way. So my website is jlkeez, Keez.com.au. And I guess that's how you can connect with me to find out everything. You know, I have a contacts page that you can email me through or contact me through. And obviously I would invite you to look at my website and have a look at each of the pages that I have there. The exciting thing that's happening in addition to what we've shared today is there's a new page that's just been added today, and you can go on and have a look, but I've got to vet it yet and make sure everything's in place. You know, I have a wonderful website designer, Sally Jacquet up in Queensland, and she's been working very hard on it for me because since meeting Rani and Sinette, we both have Sinette in common out of South Africa, Sinette van Breda. I have been writing articles for her magazine that she does. What's it? Diamond Moment magazine. Sorry, Sinette, if I got that wrong. And I write a monthly article for them, and they were a little impressed. Can I say it that way? And some of them have read my books already as well. And I guess this is something else I should own, is that I've found out that I'm a pretty good writer, as I said earlier, and it's taken a while to actually own that. So Sinette has asked me to create and design some writing courses for people who have similar stories or heartbreaking stories but don't quite know how to word it and put it into an article or a blog or a book even. And so I have the great privilege of meeting people across the globe now and helping them transform their wisdom acquired from their journey into words to share for somebody else. So I have a Zoom course, and I know you've participated in that, Rani, thank you. And I have 6 people in the room as well as me, so 7 altogether. And we go through the process. We start at the grassroots, if you like, of how to write. And I have a Zoom and an online presentation of that. And I'm just finalising the extension course where we move on from using that core learning to how do we do the next stage and write a bigger article and how to do the next one. And then in the pipeline, I have 2 book-based ones. You know, how do we take this learning into writing our first book and all the things that go together with writing that first book. So that's my next adventure, and I'm enjoying creating everything and meeting people and teaching them. So that's the next step.
That is really super exciting. JL, I had the opportunity, thanks to Sinette. I would like to say big thank you to Sinette for giving me that opportunity to be on, to get to know you. And I really am very grateful for that course that you offered, that initial course. That was really powerful for me. That has encouraged me to write. So I am contributing to some other books. So thank you so much. And I am sure your upcoming course will be even more fabulous than the first one. And I'm really happy for you. And I really recommend the audience to get in touch with JL. She is an amazing teacher, and you will feel so confident after that. Writing will become like a walk in the park. Believe me. Yes. So thank you so much, JL, for your time today, for this great conversation. Yes, please go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say from that website page I've just designed, you don't have to be a writer to become a writer. Just learn the process, know their structure, be bothered to go through that structure and take it on, knowing that like ballet, you have the dance, you have ballet as the core, and then you move out from there. You have this structure as a core, and you move out into a freer form of writing as you go along. So you don't have to be a writer to become one, but you can become one.
Yes. Everybody is the writer, the painter, the architect of their own story. So everybody can do it. Yes. So thank you, JL. It's been a great pleasure having you. So thank you for your time, for sharing your wisdom, your story, what you do. And I wish you all the best, a lot of success with your new course and with everything that you do. And any final words you would like to add, JL?
I would just like to thank you for reaching out to me and inviting me to have this conversation here today, because these are the conversations that bring change into our world. These are the sort of conversations that bring understanding. And I've plugged that word just before, and underline, underline, underline. This is where the understanding generates, from people who have experiences to share. So thank you for providing that opportunity for me to contribute that to your series today. Really a pleasure.
Thank you. Very, very grateful for you. Thank you, JL. And thank you to the audience for watching, sharing, and subscribing. And we'll see you with another episode very soon. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.
Bye.